Okay, what I'm doing is putting together a little box of goodies. I've got my trailer into a friends of mine's shop. Now it's right down the building from my shop at the end. I can't get, as you have known in the past videos, as I have discussed in past videos, I can't get my trailer into the shop because of the constraints of the road and stuff, and it's even worse in winter. I have gotten it in here, but it's in the summertime when it hasn't rained, because I actually have to drive the forklift up into that grassed area across the street to be able to get it in. And in the back, I can't get it in because of the railroad berm and the yeah, those garbage bins back there. I can't get it in. So what I did is, and I'll show it to you when I go down there, I was able to get it in there because directly across the street from his overhead door in the front is a driveway where tractor trailers pull into the moving company loading dock, and I was able to kind of drive the forklift or back the trailer out of my spot, bring it across the street, drive into that area where the tractor trailers pull in for the loading dock, and then back it into his front door. So when I get down there, I'll show it to you. What I've got to do is I'm going to go on a trip, and I've got some those running lights that are out on the trailer. So I'm going to go down there, fix that, grease it, oil the chains and stuff up so that they're good. There's supposed to be some bad weather in between. I'm going to Texas, if I didn't mention that. There's supposed to be some bad weather in between, but so I'm going to be leaving a little early. But I'll bring you back when I'm down there. So here I am in that shop. This is that shop that this guy, he let me borrow it so that I could wash my trailer and fix those lights. So I came in here where it's nice and warm and heated and dry, and I'm not sitting in a snowbank underneath the trailer trying to work on it. But I washed it too, got some of that salt off of it. So I'm going to take it out now. I'll show you. I'll open that overhead door and show you why I can get it in here. And that's kind of why I can get it in, is because I can pull straight across, go into that area for the loading dock with the forklift, and then just put it, back it up into our parking areas. Okay, so first day back from the haul from hell. If I haven't explained that to you in another clip, I will explain the haul from hell in a clip after these. Why I'm showing you the front of my truck is I probably got about 80 miles into the start of this haul, and I ran into some freezing rain. And I noticed that my lights were really dim. Kind of thought probably, even though they're halogen and they produce heat, I kind of thought there would probably be ice over the plastic, the outer plastic lenses. Halogen lights produce heat. LEDs don't produce heat, and that's a big issue with LED lights in where you live in the wintertime. is they don't melt the snow and ice off of them because they don't produce heat. Halogen bulbs do produce heat, but the problem is they put this plastic thing out away from the actual bulb, so you don't get enough heat in there to melt the snow and ice sometimes. But I regress. Noticed that lights were getting starting to get dim, so I kind of suspected that there was probably snow and ice on my headlight lenses. Pulled into a rest stop, and I was right. I had taken my scraper out and got the ice off of it, and then I noticed that I had had my fog lights on and they weren't on. And I'm thinking, what the heck going on? So I went back in the car and I turned them on and off, and I started panicking a little bit because my fuel transfer is on the same set of switches, or in the same switch pod, was wired at the same time. But then I kind of remembered I had ran a separate lead because I had that fuel tank, the fuel transfer tank switch installed before I installed them 3 switches. So the hot lead for the fuel transfer solenoid is on a different leg, and I'm thinking, okay, I switched that switch on, it lit up so it looked like it was transferring fuel. I left it on for a couple 10, 15, 20 minutes just so that I could check the gauge and make sure that the fuel was transferring, and it was. But the lights were still not working. So I continued on. Then I got home, kept thinking about it while I was gone, and I knew that, figured out that I had ran those 2 different leads, and that there was fuses under there. So I figured when I get home, I'll check it all out, make sure, see what it is. So let me shut you off. I'm going to take you over to the toolbox. So here we are over to the fuse or toolbox, and I pulled the fuse out, and I noticed, first of all, I looked up at it in the light, and it looked good, but I couldn't figure out what that black stuff was on the one leg. And then the bottom of the plastic on the fuse looked melted. And I opened this thing up, and hopefully you can see that as you're looking at it on the right-hand side. It totally melted the rubber or plastic that is surrounding this thing. And I'm thinking, well, that's weird. I wonder how it got hot. I'm thinking maybe it came into contact with something. So what I did, cut this out, took the 2 end wires, stripped them off, tied them in together, went in the truck, turned the light on, and noticed that the fog lights were very dim. So I came out and looked at them, and it looks like there's water inside the lens. As I'm thinking, that maybe that's got something to do with it. Then I looked at the other lights, the running lights, and they also looked dim. And I'm thinking, well, that's weird. I've got to check it out. So I shut it off. I went back to the battery where I spliced these wires together to unwrap them, and it burned my finger. It was so hot. As you can see, you see better on this one, it melted the insulation on the wire. So I have an issue. I'm not really sure what could be causing it. I know that I'm getting power up to the switches, and there's power. I can turn the switches on and off, and the fog lights did come on and off while I was talking about it. If you can look in there, you see the water inside of the amber lens on that one, also on this one too. So I know that I've got power to the switches, and I know that I can turn each one on and off, So I'm suspecting someplace, probably in the lead from the battery, because it happens with both of them, probably in the lead from the battery into the truck, the wire is probably coming in contact with the ground. Now, why I say that is I don't think, well, it could possibly be one or the other, because I turned both sets on, so it would probably more than likely be the fog lights, if it was the lead going from the fog lights back into the switch, because I only had the fog lights on when this originally happened. So but when I just turned the running lights on, they were on, but they were dim, and I'm thinking that was weird. So someplace in the truck I have a dead short on that thing, and it's creating a problem with it. So I'm not going to videotape it. Maybe I'll videotape, if I do find something, I'll videotape that, but I'll let you know how I make out with it. Okay, let's talk about the tool cart for a minute. I had quite a few responses to my last shop update, where I had discussed that this wasn't the cart that I had ordered. I had ordered a cart with the sliding tops on it, and this has a lift-up lid on it. So I asked for comments from viewers as to what they thought. Should I keep this? Should I send it back and demand that I get the cart with the sliding top on it? What my decision is I'm going to keep this. I'm going to keep this because I like it. It looks, and only looks, I've never actually hands-on touched one of the toolboxes or tool carts with a sliding top, but from the picture, this Maximizer looks a lot more rugged than the other one does. So I've kind of decided that I will just keep the top, keep chargers, keep big pry bars where I had showed you that they can go in there and things like that, and so that I don't really have to get in here. And what I'm going to use is the big magnetic trays on the top, put a bunch of them up here where I can put nuts, bolts, washers, sockets, tools, whatever I want to lay down for a little while on the cart can go up there in them trays. Then if I have to pick it up to get like a battery out of it, they're not going to come off of the magnetic tray. I know that it's not a perfect situation, but I kind of weighed my thoughts on that this box looks a lot, matches my box, looks a lot more rugged, and looks a lot bigger than the other roll cart. So I, again, have decided to keep it. So what I'm going to do is there's a lot of things that have to be done to it. The handles have to be put on. The drawer liners have to be put in. Stuff like that, and start setting it up. But what I'll do is kind of do like a time-lapse tripod video of it. Okay, so one of my viewers regarding the tool cart had said to me, why don't you just go to Harbor Freight and buy one of those tool carts that they have there that is a lot less expensive than a Mac tool cart. Well, my preferences lie with Mac, but I do have a Harbor Freight, horrible freight, tool cart there is a bunch of things that I don't like about it, and I tried to kind of reference it when in my last video I says the inexpensive tool carts I don't like because you can't get the drawers open with unless the top is open. There is no way to do it. You can't do it. It's kind of a waste of shelf space down below. I mean, that looks convenient, it looks great, but when you're doing everyday work, you wouldn't want to put stuff down there. First of all, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind, and it's a pain in the ass to have to stoop down and look for something underneath there, where that space could have been used more valuably for drawer space. But I do have one. Thanks for the comment, but I'll pass on that. Okay, let's get into the trip from hell. As you all know, as I have said previously, I had to make a trip to Texas. I knew that there was supposed to be a storm, but again, you know, I live in an area where people predict the weather, and not just local news agencies who actually get their information from the Weather Service in most cases. I mean, they don't model weather patterns themselves. Well, mostly. But anyways, I live in an area where they're wrong about what's going to happen with the weather more than they are right. Let me just say that. So I knew there was supposed to be a storm, and it was supposed to be like rain and some snow. Now, I knew that we were supposed to get snow. That's kind of why I left early. We were supposed to get a lake effect storm, and that's kind of why I left early. So as I had discussed about the truck, I had drove through some freezing rain down kind of on 79 headed south through Pennsylvania. And I had left Saturday night, and I got down. I used to do a lot of rock climbing in West Virginia at the New River Gorge. So there's another area besides the New River Gorge just north of the New River Gorge, and it's called Summersville, West Virginia. And there's a very good climbing area in Summersville. It's right on a lake. And so there's a Walmart parking lot that a lot of truckers stop and sleep at, or take a break at, and I stop and sleep there. Don't shop at Walmarts. I think I've been in a Walmart one time, and the only reason I went in there was I had to pick something up for my great-granddaughter and for Emma, and she is the only reason that I'd ever go in a Walmart. I slept there maybe 3 or 4 hours and then headed back out again, and got down into Louisiana. And again, it was raining. It was raining most of the way there. And the temperature was hovering right around the freezing mark, a little above the freezing mark, but it was hovering around there. I got to Baton Rouge. I wanted to get on 10 because 10 goes down to Houston. And so there's a bypass. 10 goes through New Orleans, and I didn't want to go through New Orleans. But there's a bypass that goes north of it. It's called Route 12. So I got on 12, and it started to get a little colder there. It was down around the freezing mark, or maybe just a little bit below, and still raining. So I was going down 12, got to Baton Rouge, and we hit 10. And as soon as I hit 10, the roads started going bad. There was like a lot of slush in the roads. It wasn't snowing. Again, it was still raining, but it was below freezing. So I get to where 10 splits off, and there's a alternate 10, or like a city 10 in Baton Rouge, but you continue on 10 to the left-hand side and go over a bridge which goes over the Mississippi River. I got to that point and there was 2 tractor trailers stopped right there with their 4-way flashers on. And I'm thinking there was probably an accident because you could see the bridge coming up. I'm thinking there was probably an accident. So I stopped behind them and I put my 4-way flashers on, and a bunch of other trucks came up behind me. Again, it was nighttime, so mostly trucks on the road. Stopped behind me, and then all of a sudden the 2 semis in front of me started going very slowly. Well, I understand probably why they stopped. There was a overpass that you had to go over before you got to the bridge, and it's kind of a left-hand curve, and it's banked, and it was like a sheet of ice. Now there was 2 tire tracks down through it, and they crept over this bridge at about like 2 miles an hour. And I followed them, and all was good until we hit the bridge going over the Mississippi, and that thing was like a sheet of ice. And I'm thinking, man, I don't understand why they didn't close this thing before we're going over it. We got over it okay. Got down to a little town on the other side. It's called Port Allen, and the road was closed. They had barriers up and were taking all of the trucks off. So you got off at this exit. There happened to be a Love's Truck Center there, but all of the trucks were headed towards that mainly. That was on, when you got off the exit, you turned left to go to the Love's. But there was a bunch of trucks that were turning right. But I didn't know where they were going. Being out of town, way out of town, you're not familiar with local roads. And I didn't want to get stuck someplace where I didn't know where I was, or the roads were so bad that I'd probably get stuck. So, again, most of these trucks were going into the Love's. Well, it turns out the Love's was packed to begin with. Now, which is usual for a weekday. On a weekend, usually there's parking spots or truck parking spots at a Love's on a weekend, because a lot of truckers don't drive the weekend. I saw the trucks going into the Love's, and I knew that it would be full. If the road, they had barricades up, so the road had probably been closed for half an hour or an hour. I knew that truck stop would be full. So I kind of followed them to the left, but right before the Love's, there was like a turnaround where you could make a U-turn, or a place where you could make a U-turn. I turned around and I parked underneath the road viaduct on the side of the road. And it turned out that I was right, because all those trucks that I kind of had followed pulled back out and went further down the street, where I told you I had turned left getting off the exit, and there was a lot of trucks that went to the right. Apparently they were parking in like businesses parking lots and stuff like that, restaurant parking lots and stuff. So anyways, this was about 1 o'clock Yeah, 1 o'clock Sunday morning. So I sat there probably about an hour, and then trucks started parking behind me and in front of me and on the other side of the road underneath the viaduct, and there was trucks up and down this entire road and in a lot of the parking lots. And what they had done is shut Interstate 10 down between Baton Rouge, well, they hadn't, it was between Port Allen and Lafayette, Louisiana. Right after they had shut us down, they shut that bridge, the Mississippi River Bridge, down too, and part of 10 going through Baton Rouge. But I sat there at that place for 2.5 days. And was talking to the guy, not Sunday night when I got there, but beginning the next day, Monday. I had emailed the guy that had brokered this thing and hired me to do this haul. I emailed him and told him to get a hold of the customer, because I didn't know anything about Texas at this time. I wasn't listening to the radio or anything, but so I had this broker email the customer and say that I probably wouldn't be there Monday morning because of the weather and because the road was shut down. He got a hold of him and he emailed me back, or he actually called me. He emailed me first and then called me afterwards and said he talked to this guy. The guy says basically they're shut down, they lost power. He's at home. He tried to get in on a Monday morning and he couldn't make it in. His guys were trying the same thing, and he told his guys to go home, just to stay home, that they weren't going to open then. So originally I was supposed to pick these generators up on a Monday morning. I sat there again for 2.5 days. And I was talking to this guy, and he says, yeah, we still don't have power at the shop. I don't have power at my house, but we're going to try and make it in. This was on Tuesday. So I talked to him late Tuesday afternoon. He says, I made it in, but nobody else made it in. He says, I think we can load you tomorrow. And I says, yeah, I'll be there Wednesday morning, but it depends on if this road is open or not. But I said, I'm looking at maps, and there's a 190 that's north of me that kind of loops around and comes back into 10 on the other side of Lafayette, like Port Charles type of area. Yeah. I was thinking, is it Port Charles or St. Charles? Port Charles. So anyways, to make a long story short, I did go up to that 190. It was open. It did go around the detour on 10, or it did make a detour around that 10. Now, again, I don't know these local roads, so I never knew that. I probably could have gotten there the first day, but it wouldn't have made any difference because I probably would have never gotten to his business the first day or the second day. Let me explain why. I was looking at Google Maps as long as I was talking to him. So he says, yeah, we're going to open up Wednesday. I was in there on Tuesday afternoon. We still don't have power. We don't have water. But we're going to be there on Wednesday for sure. I can get my guys in. And I says, listen to me. I've got to go into Houston on 10, and it's showing the roads are closed, that main thoroughfare that goes down to your city. He was probably about 20 miles south of Houston. I says that road, I think it's Route 288 if you want to look it up on a map, is being shown closed in Houston. Can you double check that for me? And he says, yeah, I will. And so in a subsequent phone call, he says, no, I think everything's good. You can make it down here. So I took off and went that detour, the 190 around there, got into Houston, and that road, entrance to that road is still closed. And I know why. Huge viaduct. Huge tall viaduct. The entrance off of 10 to this 288 is a tall, huge viaduct, and I imagine there was ice and probably accidents on it, and it had been closed because it hadn't been cleared. So I finally did make it down to him. I detoured around and got on 288 North, and 288 was open. It was just the entrance and exits that you couldn't get out. So I got down to him, got the generators loaded, came back, and they had reopened 10. It was raining hard, and it was still around the 34-degree mark. So there were still slush-covered areas on the road, and it wasn't in the greatest condition, but it was open. And I made it all the way back to Alabama, Tennessee border, and they had snow and no plows. And it was like a slushy snow, real wet, slushy snow. And so I got kind of stuck there for a couple of hours debating on what I should have done. So actually I'm calling the weather forecast, and one of the problems with weather forecasts is they don't tell you. They say it's going to snow. I called the weather forecast, and I asked what it was doing in Pittsburgh, what it was doing in Louisville, which was north of me and on the route that I was on, and it said it was going to snow, and snow in both cities. But they don't tell you what kind of snow. Is it like a dusting of snow? Are they going to get 8 inches of snow? They don't tell you that. They just say, yeah, snow is predicted. So what I did is I looked east of me and found areas where the temperature was up in the above freezing or into the upper 30s, and they weren't calling for snow. So what I did is I had stopped at a rest stop, and I stopped at a rest stop, and it was terrible. It was all slush, and some security guard asked me to move my truck, and I says, I'm not moving. I'll move when they plow it. He says, they're not going to plow this. I said, what do you mean they're not going to plow it? Alabama, he says, we don't have plows. Anyways, I got east of there, and it was raining a lot, but the roads were clear. They didn't have any snow. Probably once I got about 40 miles east of where I was in Alabama or Tennessee, I had gone up to Tennessee and went over 40, and probably 40 miles from that rest stop in Alabama to on 40 over. There was no snow. It was just raining, and actually the trip home, I ran into a little bit of snow, and every time you run into it, you don't know whether it's going to get worse, not get worse, what it's going to do. But actually it tapered off, and it was mainly rain type of stuff until I got closer to home, and then it started snowing a little bit. But anyways, let's get back to 10, and I'm going to make this, the rest of it's going to be short here. When I was sitting there waiting for them, these people don't have any means of dealing with this. I was sitting under a viaduct, and they had a backhoe and a excavator on top of the viaduct trying to scrape the ice off of the pavement with an excavator, and the backhoe was using his bucket to try and scoop it off of the bridge. They had no trucks I didn't see any trucks with plows. And they didn't have any sanders. So yeah, I had sat there, I said I was sitting there 2.5 days, probably a day and a half into this thing, and I saw a DOT truck with a little fiberglass salt spreader on the back that we use up here in the back of pickup trucks for guys that plow driveways and stuff. We use them. And then after that, after I saw that, I saw a flatbed tractor trailer with a bunch of skids on it that they must have bought skids of 50-pound bags of salt and tried to put it in them little fiberglass things to salt the road with, but it was ridiculous. Gonna throw a couple of pics in here, or I've already done it, but just to let you know, I was just kind of showing you what was going on, and I showed you the generators that I had to pick up. Generators were portable generators. They were 225 kWs, both of them. They were supposed to have weighed 10,500 pounds apiece. I'm not sure if they weighed that, but that's what I was told. But anyways, this has been long enough. I'm going to let you go here. I'm going to film a little segment here on the carbon fiber intake build for the A3 Cummins, but that's not what this is about. What I wanted to show you is I haven't even got the box put together yet, and there's stuff on top of it already. But it's only temporary until I do the filming of the material for the carbon fiber intake. I'm just going to throw these two clips, the one clip before this about the box and stuff on top of it, and this clip, this is just going to be the summation clip. So the box, I'm going to be doing the next shop update. I'll get it ready, put it together, get everything started to be put into it. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Hit that like button, subscribe, leave a comment.